So thank you again for coming. This is the human side of geography, going over sort of the second half of the Chapter 1 Essentials of World Geography in our first lesson. Some of you I believe I've had in our previous webinars. My name is Paul. I am the Social Studies instructor here at Penn Foster, and on the page you should see my email address as well as my community page. If for those of you who may or may not know, we do have new study group pages opened up now in the community. They are from your academic group space for high school, and then on the left-hand side you'll actually see social studies study groups as one of the links to open. And starting on Monday, sometime during the day, we will also have our science and math pages opening up and become active for you guys to be able to see and meet our science and math instructors and be able to communicate about your different courses there. And later on in the month, the English pages will also open up for your viewing and being able, again, talk with the instructors and get some help from the about your different lessons. So that is all coming up, very exciting, and hopefully you all will be able to get some good benefits from those pages. So our webinar today just have a couple of general objectives. Learning about the different components of human geography. There are very similar to the physical geography, some different components that we will go over, and also the terms in the textbook. We will also do some reviewing and talking about those as well. And I always start my webinars with sort of the general why is it that we study world geography, why has it become a required course in Penn Foster High School. And in general, much like with a lot of social studies courses, they really help us understand people and places better. They give us a better understanding as to what people are doing, why they're doing it, and really help build our multiculturalism. Again, understanding people, understanding what people are doing, and why. So those are the two main reasons why we do study world geography and why we consider it as important as we do. As I said at the beginning, human geography is very similar to physical geography in that there are several categories that really help us give a more clear explanation of human geography. And those categories, we're going to be looking at cultural geography, also economics, which is its own real branch of social studies, but is also a part of how geographers study the world and how they study or how they really research what's going on in the world. The political geography is another kind of essential piece. We'll go over some of the big issues that are going on within political geography, and also kind of talk a little bit about how we see that in the news these days as well. And also the last piece being urban and rural changes, how the movements of people and where people are living really helps affect. So the first component, the first part is cultural geography, which is defined as the variation of cultural characteristics, and that really helps create the diversity and the multiculturalism that we talked about as one of the major reasons why we have world geography. One of the big ways that diversity is shown is through what we call cultural norms. A norm is an action or an activity or a characteristic that culture finds acceptable. This includes clothing, can include common vocabulary and language, as well as public or private actions. These norms can also be different between not only groups within a culture, but also between cultures, but also within a culture. Consider how different the norms could be between teenagers and, let's say, seniors when they are dressing and when they are talking. It is these cultural norms that most come up when people are comparing cultures, and this can be both in positive and really as negative terms, or in negative terms, I should say. You know, think about whenever it is you've heard someone say or look at something that is different, and they'll say something to the something similar to, "Oh, that's strange," or "That's weird." Typically, they are talking about what is considered a cultural norm, how people are dressed, how they talk, what they're doing, what they're eating. Those are all considered cultural norms, things that a culture will consider acceptable, or really a part of a culture. Like I said, between ages, cultural norms can be very different. Between different regions of an area, regions of a country may be very different. America has its own culture, but the culture between folks in the Northeast versus Midwest versus South versus West, cultural norms can be just very different based on how that small culture, that subculture, what they consider to be acceptable, what they consider to be okay to do, both inside or both in private and in public. Another significant part of cultural geography is that of language. So language is any kind of speech, writing, or signing of language, or to spread around details or spread around ideas. And a subgroup of languages is what's called world languages. And that can be languages that are beyond just geographic areas. So several centuries ago, a language would just be spoken within a small geographic area. One city, one country, one nation would speak the same language. But because of forces that we'll talk about a little bit more later on in the presentation, and because of certain parts, even physical geography, has caused our languages to spread. And because of that, we have created more what's called world languages. These languages that a majority of the people around the world are speaking. And these are languages that are considered what's called official languages, even in our United Nations. That there are a few languages that we do kind of focus on as world languages, those that are considered the most important based on how many people are speaking that language. Another component of culture are religions. And our religions are really divided between what's called universal religions and ethnic religions. And universal religions are those based on extending membership, increasing the number of members within a religion. And an ethnic religion is one based on where you're born and people within your ethnic group. So everyone within one ethnic group are considered to be in an ethnic religion. Now, let's think about these. These are the terms. What do you guys think as sort of those universal religions, ones that are, again, based on the extension of memberships, increasing the number of members, versus in an ethnic religion, only those who are within that culture or within that group, those are going to be the only ones who are within that. Okay, so especially in terms of those universal religions, we would be thinking about religions like Islam and Judaism are sort of the two big ones. Buddhism had sort of started off as more of an ethnic religion, one that is based on that geographic area, and now has really become more of a of a more of a universal religion, because so many people like the ideas that of Buddhism. Many famous people had become Buddhists in the past. Same thing with Islam. Had started off ethnic, become more universal, become more accepted, and more many more converts as the centuries have gone on. Baptists are certainly ones that are popular, and certainly part of that Christian sort of Christian religion as well. A lot of our more American religions are generally kind of considered under that Christian umbrella. Baptists, Catholics, Methodists, Lutherans. All of those are sort of considered that same brand of Christianity. So very good. Any thoughts about other ethnic religions? Ones that we would consider to be those that are kind of focused in one area or one region of the world. Those would definitely be ones that are again focused in one area. So Hinduism is probably one. Probably the best known of the ethnic religions, ones that you don't necessarily go and convert to, but certainly one that is popular because of the number of people who do prescribe to that religion. And along with Christianity as a universal language, the most well-known ones would be Judaism as well as Islam or Muslims. All right, very good. Moving right along, the book, and I think this is a very significant area as well, but there are a lot of differences that different cultures have. That's not only about the cultural norms, but within those norms, there are areas that really cause division within cultures. And they really go back to what's considered or what's called a cultural hearth. And those are differences, cultural differences, that can be traced back to our earliest of civilizations. And in the case of a country like the United States, we really don't have a strong cultural hearth because our culture does not really go back much beyond the 1700s, 1600s, because of how young our culture really is. We have some connection to English culture and French and Spanish culture, but what's kind of considered an American culture really does not come into play until much, just a few centuries ago. But when we consider the culture of Italy, and that of many European countries, African countries, Asian countries, many of those cultures really come from many, many centuries ago, that a lot of people have gone through the same culture as and do the same, have the same traditions, have the same norms, similar to ones that they had centuries ago. And we can obviously kind of consider some problems that definitely could have occurred or have occurred because some cultures have been slow or have been unwilling to change their cultures based from the earlier civilizations of centuries ago. Parts of, oops, went too far, sorry. Among those cultural hearths, the differences, comes the four circles that are around cultural hearth on the presentation, including ethnic groups, where a lot of members within a culture are going to show commonalities, are going to see something in common with each other, as an ethnic group. This kind of goes back to that cultural norm that the people who are in that same ethnic group, that same culture, are going to have the same beliefs, are going to have the same ideas of what is considered acceptable. Also within that are differences between the genders, between men and women, that depending on the culture, there's going to be sort of a hierarchy, a difference between members between men and women. In many traditional cultures, it's been men who have had a higher rank, but over the course of centuries, we've seen a leveling, an equaling of men and women throughout different cultures. Same thing with race, that for many years there was a difference between people of race, and over the last just 2 or 3 centuries, we've really been trying as a multicultural aspect and view, that we try to have a much more willingness to say, yes, all races are the same. The science has shown us, the cultural norms have shown us how people have become far more accepting and far more willing and wanting for people to be free and to be equal. I do see that there are some questions, and again, I'm having difficulties seeing exactly what those questions are. I do apologize. Just see here. All right. So let me just kind of finish this up. The last piece is in class hierarchy, that there is a division between those within a society based on sometimes based on wealth, sometimes based on property, some cases just based on the family that you're born into. Those are kind of considered the hierarchy within classes in a culture. And again, let me look to see if I can get into our questions. Sorry, let me just try this. Let's see here. Okay. All right, very good. There seems to just be a continuing conversation about the world religions. That's excellent. Do you guys have any other questions or any other anything that you guys have questions about? Okay. All right, very good. All right. Okay. So moving on, another key part of the importance of culture and the importance of human geography has been based on the population and on the growth of population. And part of that has been just how much our world has increased in size in terms of population over the last centuries. If you look over at this chart, it's clearly, oh, sorry about that. It really shows a clear change in our population, and for how long our population was really consistent and really did not change much, and just how much it has changed in the last, like I said, over the last century or so. Our population worldwide has really skyrocketed, and this Padlet, this URL, this web address that you guys see, that takes you to a Padlet that I know has been used by a number of different presentations. But if you take a look at that and kind of consider for a second, why is it that the human population was so consistent for so many years, and as sort of a doubling of that, why do you think it's changed as much as it has in this last 100 years or so? If you want to take a minute, and I don't know if you're able to write down the address or if you're able to copy it down, copy and paste it. This is just one of those discussion questions that I'll also add to our the community page for World Geography on the Penn Foster community, and this can be really a conversation that we can expand on over the course of not even just this webinar, but in the future as well. The next part is also looks at population density. And not only has our population increased, but really the amount of people in certain areas of the world have increased as well. This is one of our theme maps. For those of you who were not in my webinar 2 weeks ago, I introduced the idea of a theme map. This is really how a lot of our geographers show their information through maps, and in different kinds of maps called theme maps. And one of them is a population density, where we can see just how many people live in certain areas of the world. And this is a map, a population density map of China, and China is one of the most populated nations in the world. And you can see, much like in the United States and other parts of the world, where there are different areas of country that are more populated than others. And in the case of China, it's really almost a split between half and half. That half of the country is very densely populated, a lot of people in the eastern half of the world or in the country, while on the western half, the yellow parts here, that are less populated. There are certainly areas that are more populated density than others, but overall it's much more of this kind of eastern half of the world, or of China, I'm sorry, that has much more heavily populated. Let's see, I think I already went over a number of these things, but in terms of some of the key words that we see in our book, the first big one is the migration, and just how often, this map again shows population density, but the way in which people move around and where people move, that's a powerful piece that geographers look at as well. Just seeing that people are moving into not only some of the cities, but the surrounding areas. You'll see Beijing, I don't know if you can read it, but Beijing right over here, and it is a heavily populated area, but it's heavily populated density-wise all along in this eastern half of the country. And it's where people are moving to. It's where people have done a lot of movement into, again, this more urban area, where a lot more cities are, where a lot more businesses are. Larger companies are moving into these more densely populated areas. And on the more western half, much more what's called rural areas, not as populated, not as many large businesses, not as many places to work, places to live, and that's why they're less populated. And Beijing is actually labeled as one of these mega cities, one of these cities that is very largely populated, has a lot of people in those general areas. And the concept of a primate city, a city in a country that is really the first of the large cities within a country, Beijing being one In the United States, we can consider New York City, Philadelphia as sort of our primate cities. The next area is what's called political geography. This is another example of a theme map that we see the political boundaries of nations of the world. And we can see that sometimes countries are very big geographically. Consider Canada, United States, Russia, China, Brazil, and other countries are much smaller. Throughout Africa, West Asia, most of Europe have much more smaller countries and have smaller political boundaries. And within political geography, there are three big issues and big things that are discussed almost consistently throughout the world. The first one is called nationalism. This is a concept where you have a large amount and sometimes a dangerous amount of national or ethnic pride. And it's good at certain levels. You know, we all want to be proud of our country. We all want to be proud of our heritage. But in some cases, when it does get on the dangerous side, is when it can cause mistrust, violence, hatred towards those who are not in either your nation or your ethnic group. The wars, both World War I and World War II, are examples of times that nationalism can really be a driving evil force that causes people to do things that they really shouldn't, based on the fact that they believe that either their nation or their ethnicity is the best or is the greatest one. The other examples that are focused in the book and again of constant discussions are what's called IGOs and NGOs. An IGO is called an intergovernment organization, and that is an organization that is considered or is cross countries. That is an organization that many countries are members of and can create policies that all the members of the country are going to, or all the countries are saying that they are going to agree to. So the biggest IGO is the now I just forgot this name. The United Nations. There we go. That's centered in New York, that really help try to take care of conflicts around the world. And some of the two big issues about IGOs are just how sovereign countries are, how independent they are, and also the enforcement of some of the laws that a group like the United Nations would create. How exactly are they being enforced? And neither one have really been, people have tried answering them, have tried discussing them, but it's never really been one that is one that enough people have been really satisfied with the answers. The other part is an NGO, or a non-government organization. These are groups that sometimes take the place of a national government that is not able to take care of its people. Groups like Doctors Without Borders and the Red Cross worldwide are considered NGOs, that they are able to take the needs that are necessary, needs of people, and go and help them. Again, some of the issues that come along with that are both security issues, how well are they able to take care of themselves, and also enforcement. How is the Red Cross not only able to create health, but how are they able to keep people safe after they leave? Those are two big issues surrounding NGOs. Any questions on any of the political geography? Any questions that you guys have? Looks like we're still okay. Okay. All right. So the next part is about, sorry about that, is about the world economy. And let's go back for a moment. Okay. And the world economy, the economics of geography, is really looking at how it is that wealth is measured and how wealth is created. And there are three areas that really help explain wealth and help explain where a country is in terms of how wealthy, how powerful economically they are. Excuse me. The first one is the gross domestic product, and you might know of it as what's called a GDP. And that is looking at the total value of goods and services within a country. And it's often brought up in terms of how strong a country is, how well they are economically, how much wealth they are creating. And the difference between that and the gross national income, or GNI, is thinking about it in terms of that the GNI is actually adding in how much imports and how much is coming, how many foreign transactions are being done along with the GDP. So taking into account how much wealth is being transferred between countries. The next point is what's called a purchasing power, and that is taking into account not only the GDP, not only the GNI, but also how much it costs to live comfortably within a country. How are people having enough income or having enough wealth to be able to survive in that country? And part of the purchasing power is how much there is of inflation. That inflation is how much things are increasing in price. And that's been an issue on and off for decades and centuries. How much things are costing and what can a government and what can policy do to increase or decrease inflation. Well, when it's decreased, it's called deflation, actually. I'm sorry. All right. This theme map, looking at the GDP, how much wealth there is within a country, and you can see some of the countries that you would typically assume are strong economically are ones in blue, have high GDP, United States, Canada, a lot of Europe, Australia, and then countries that we would sometimes assume as weaker countries economically, countries unfortunately in Africa, South Asia, showing as lower GDP, lower amount national wealth. The two main concepts within economics and within the economies are how the economy is planned, and that is between market planning and central planning. Market planning is basically pure capitalism, that it is market driven, that the amount of money that something costs is based on how much people are willing to spend, while central planning is communism, that the government is going to decide how much something costs, how much people have to work to make a living. Those are based on what the government believes rather than what the market believes in capitalism. And these are all issues within market and central planning, within economics, how much investment is being done, how much people are putting into wealth of the country, as well as how much is being produced, the production. And it's also based on the different sectors of the economy. And there are four types. Primary sector is the production of raw materials. Secondary is the manufacturing and construction aspects of an economy. The tertiary, the third kind of the sector, are the service industries, thinking about healthcare, thinking about education. And then the final, the quaternary, is looking at legal production, financial, and also things out of the media and money out of the internet. The common economy is actually a combination of both the market and central planning. And this mixed economy is really actually the U.S. model, that we have prices based on the market, the price of goods, the price of services. But our government is also in charge of making sure that, for instance, milk prices stay relatively sometimes higher or lower based on how much a farmer needs to make. That's part of the government. They are the ones who decide how much, excuse me, how much things are costing. Excuse me. There are parts of our global economy as well. Pardon me, I'm sorry. And they are part of it is a multinational corporation where people within a country are or multiple countries have goods and services being created throughout different factories or different companies around the world. And two concepts that perhaps we've heard of before: outsourcing and offshoring. They're slightly different. Outsourcing is when a contract is actually sent to an outside group, typically outside of a country, where services used to be done by one company and now they've contracted it to another country. Offshoring is the actual moving of jobs to another country, that a factory or a company is actually moving itself to another location. And in some cases, that's commonly seen as sort of the locking up of a factory or locking up of a company when a company decides to either outsource or offshore some of its workforce and some of its jobs. The final part of this presentation is looking at some of the different changes. The economy section has some of that urban and rural changes. Other parts of it are the concern with development of our society. And the concerns with development really center on the development of human development. That's making sure that it enhances human capabilities and really helps improve the quality of life of the people within that society, within that economy. And we as a world are really looking at what's called sustainable development. That not only does our economic growth help us, but it's also something that will allow our resources to remain as well, that we are using non-renewable resources as well as decreasing the amount of non-renewable resources. And when we think about both economically and developmental-wise, we're really looking at three types of worlds. The first, being the first world, are really the countries that had developed capitalistic countries based on that market, the market-driven economy. The second is being the central planning economy, and then the third are countries that really have just become either independent or really starting to develop their economies, ones that are unsure as to how they're really going through their economic growth. And the final piece of this development is looking at human rights, that people want to make sure that they have political rights, that they are receiving the right to vote, that they are participating in their government. The next kind of right is social right, that people are making sure that they have jobs, that they're earning a living wage. And finally, that people have cultural rights, that people are becoming protected, that they are their cultural traditions are really helping people stay healthy and are able to be successful in being successful in their lives. So that's my presentation. I apologize. It is a longer presentation than we've had in the past. But are there any other questions or any other things that you guys want to learn about, or something that you thought we might cover but not sure if we did? Anything you guys want to go over? Any details that you weren't sure of? Okay, thank you, Norma. Thank you, I appreciate it. Norma mentioned that it's informative, so I do appreciate that. Well, I appreciate everyone's listening and everyone's participation. My next presentation in I believe 2 weeks is going to focus on really going over the how to study for your first exam in world geography. Some of you probably have already done that, already preparing for your exams. But I'll just kind of go over some helpful hints and some of the major concepts that are throughout all of Lesson 1. Not only Chapter 1, but also the chapters on European and Russian geography. So if you guys have no other questions, I thank you again for attending. I thank you again for being helpful and being participating. And you all have a great day and take care.